Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from C group, and then we will explain about the ethnography of communication or EC. And let's introduce our group. My name is Putri Melinia, and Lutfiyah Khairatun and Reza Febiola. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Melinia, and I will explain about the ethnography of communication. There are three definitions of ethnography of communication. The first definition, the ethnography of communication is a method of discourse analysis in linguistics, which draws on the anthropological field of an ethnography. This is from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. And then second definition, Hyme states that the ethnography of speaking is concerned not simply with language structure but with language use, with rules of speaking, the ways in which speakers associate particular modes of speaking topics or messages from which particular setting and activities. And then the next is the third definition. The third definition, the ethnography of communication is an approach to discourse analysis that is based on anthropology and linguistics. Ethnography of speaking is also known as ethnography of communication, since it embraces features of nonverbal communication too. The next, the goal ethnography of communication, to study the communicative competence of a specific speech community by discovering and analyzing patterns of communication that organize the use of language in particular communicative activities. The next is that Hyme offers a specific set of terminology. Their speech community, situation, event, and acts, and a suggested method for the conduct of the ethnography of communication, which a specific unit of analysis is the speech act. Hyme also introduced several concepts as basic unit for the ethnographic study of communication. There are four types. The first is speech community, and then speech event, and then speech act, and the last is speech situation. For example, speech situationnya at the bus stop, and speech eventnya asking the time. Speaker A says, "What time is it?" And then it is speech action 1. And then speaker B answer, "It is 1 o'clock," as speech action 2. And then speaker A said, "Okay, thanks," is speech action 3. Hyme offered the example of party as speech situation, and a conversation during the party is speech event, and then a joke within the conversation it is speech act. Okay, the first is speech community. The notion of speech community is central to the ethnography of communication. Coulthard said any group which shared linguistic research and rules for interaction and interpretation is defined as speech community. Hyme urges that it is possible for speakers to share formal linguistic feature, phonology, grammar, lexis, but still also be unable to interpret accurately each other's message. And then speakers who apparently share the same language may also have different norms as to greetings, acceptable topic, what is the said next in a conversation, how speaking turns are distributed, and so on. The question for Hyme is not only whether speakers has a common understanding of syntax and semantic, but also whether or not they share ideas about the use of silence, ideas about the meaning of irony or emphasis, speech taboos, ways of formulating requests or statements, and so on. Okay, it's enough for me.
Okay, I'm Reza Fabiola. I will continue the material about the ethnography of communication, Hyme speaking theory. B. Speech event. A speech event can be defined by a unified set of components throughout same purpose of communication, same topic, same participant, and same language variety. Jadi speech event itu merupakan suatu rangkaian dari komponen-komponen berikut ini. Tujuan komunikasi yang sama, topik yang sama, partisipan yang sama, dan variasi bahasa yang sama. For example, exchanging greetings, tukar salam, telling jokes, candaan, giving speech, pidato, stories, bercerita, conversation, percakapan, lectures, and formal introductions, itu ceramah dan perkenalan secara formal. Speech events for Hymes are activities that are directly governed by rules or norms for the use of speech. Then, speech events in everyday talk. Speech event dalam sehari-hari, bahasa yang kita gunakan sehari-hari. In fact, faktanya kita menggunakan istilah-istilah yang kita gunakan refer to merujuk ke speech event setiap saat, merujuk kepada speech event yang kita gunakan setiap waktu, and this carry a usual semantic load. For example, each of the following utterances refers to a specific speech events. Decide whether relevant international rules are. I was late for her lecture. We had a wonderful chat. And did you hear the announcement? Jadi speech event itu suatu ucapan yang kembali atau merujuk pada suatu kegiatan yang spesifik. Misalnya ya kayak ini. Ada 3 ini. I was late for her lecture. Saya terlambat pada mata kuliahnya. Kita memiliki obrolan yang menyenangkan. Dan apakah kamu mendengar pengumuman itu? Itu merujuk pada kegiatan yang lebih spesifik. Then C. Speech acts. Speech acts are the individual utterances that form the minimal unit of analysis for ethnographies of communication. Speech acts generally are called action performed via utterance. Suatu tindakan yang dilakukan melalui ucapan. Speech acts in narrow sense are the minimal terms of the said speech, situation, event, and act. Yeah. Then, for example, request, command, greeting, promise, apologize. Okay, here are some examples of speech acts we use or hear every day. Beberapa contoh speech acts yang sering kita gunakan atau kita dengar setiap hari. The first is greeting. Hi Eric, how are things going? Bagaimana kabarnya? Then request, could you pass me the mashed potatoes please? Dapatkah kamu memberiku kentang tumbuk? Then complain. I've already been waiting 3 weeks for the computer and I was told it will be delivered within a week. Saya sudah menunggu 3 minggu for the computer dan saya diberitahu itu akan dikirim dalam 1 minggu. Then invitation, mengundang. We're having some people over Saturday evening and wanted to know if you would like to join us. Kita akan kedatangan tamu dalam Saturday evening, Sabtu malam, dan ingin memberitahu kamu jika kamu akan gabung dengan kami. Then compliment, hey, I really like your tie, saya sangat menyukai dasimu. Then refusal, oh, I would love to see that movie with you, but this really just is not going to work. Aku sangat ingin melihat film dengan kamu, but Jumat ini mungkin tidak akan bisa. Then di speech situation, speech situation, context of language use such as ceremonies, fights, hunts, classrooms, conferences, parties, etc. Then the famous speaking model. Jadi model speaking itu sebenarnya speaking itu ada 8 ya. S-nya setting and scene, P-nya participant, I-nya ends, A-nya executions, K-nya key, I-nya instrumentalities, N-nya norms, G-nya genres. Then the first is setting and scene, setting the time and place of speech act and in general the physical circumstance. Waktu dan tempat dari speech acts and in general the physical circumstance like as home, classroom, and etc. Example, the living room in the grandparents' home might be a setting for a family story. Then scene, psychological setting or cultural definition of a scene including characteristics such as rank of formality and sense of play or seriousness. Example, the family story may be told at a reunion celebrating the grandparents' anniversary. At times, the family will be festive and playful, at other times serious and commemorative. Ends, purposes, goals, and outcomes. Tujuan, goals, and hasilnya. Then refer to the conventional recognized and expected outcomes of an exchange. For example, the aunt may tell a story about the grandmother to entertain the audience, teach the young women, and honor the grandmother. Jadi Bibi bercerita tentang grandmother to entertain, untuk menghibur audience, teach the young women, and honor the grandmother. Okay, then participant, speaker, hearer, and audience. Pembicara, pendengar, dan audience. The participant refers to the actors in the scene and their role relationships, including personal characteristics such as age, sex, social status, and relationship. Then the participant includes various combinations of speaker-hearer, addresser, addressee, or sender-receiver. For example, mother-daughter, and teacher-pupil. Okay, enough explanation for me. Then we'll be continue by Lutfia.
Hello everyone, it's me Lutfia, and now I will continue the explanation from Reza Fabiola about famous speaking model. So I will remind you that this model is decided by a sociolinguist. His name is Hyme, and he came with the terms of communicative competence, and this show us that culture and language, they cannot be separated. Okay, now I will continue the explanation. A. A stands for act sequence. It means form and order of the event, refers to the actual form and content of what is said. The precise word used, how they are used, and the relationship of what is said to the actual topic at hand. For example, speaker A's story might begin as a response to a toast to the speaker B. Jadi, contohnya di sini bisa jadi suatu percakapan atau suatu cerita dari seseorang itu merupakan respons dari kalimat yang sudah ada sebelumnya. Kemudian, the story's plot and development will have sequence structure by the speaker A. Jadi bisa saja suatu percakapan itu sudah distruktur sebelumnya oleh speaker A. Contohnya pada suatu interview. And then possibly there will be a collaborative interruption during the telling. Bisa jadi dalam suatu percakapan itu ada interupsi atau gangguan atau saling menyelah satu sama lain. And then finally the group might upload the tale and move into other activity. Jadi bisa jadi setelah mengakhiri percakapan kemudian berpindah ke lain aktivitas. And then we continue the K. K stands for key. It means tone, manner, or spirit of the speech act in which particular message is conveyed, like light-hearted, serious, mocking, or sarcastic. For example, speaker A might imitate the speaker B's voice and gestures in a playful way, or she might address the group in a serious voice, imparting the sincerity and respect of the praise to the story expressed. This means the way the speaking is performed, the tone of voice, and the inflection patterns, the prosody, which means the intonation, the manner in which we deliver the message. And then I stand for instrumentalities or instruments. It's forms and styles of speech and writing. It's about formal and informal. Instrumentalities refer to the choice of particular channel, for example, oral, written or telegraphic, and to the actual forms of speech drawn from community reported, such as language, dialect, code, or register that is chosen. For example, speaker A might speak in a casual register with many dialect features or informal. Jadi ketika seseorang menggunakan berbagai dialek daerah mereka, bisa dikatakan dengan informal, and then they might use for more formal register and careful grammatical standards or forms, atau dalam kalimat formal menggunakan bahasa formal. And then N stand for norms. It's social rules governing the event and the participants' actions and reactions. It refers to the specific behaviors and properties attached to speaking, and also to how this may be viewed by someone who doesn't share them. This is the norms of the conversations. This is important in that you have to understand the culture of some communities or groups, and or those rules are really important because there are social rules that we have to respect. And yeah, this is how we can effectively engage with other people within the group, within the speech community. So we have to respect them. For example, in a playful story about by the end, the norms might allow many audience interaction and collaboration, or possibly those interruptions might be limited to participation by older females. A serious and formal story by the end might call for attention to her and not interruptions as norms. Okay, now G. G stands for genre, the kind of speech, act, or event. Genre textual categories refers to the clearly demarcated types of utterance, such as the kind of story, poems, letters, novel, proverbs, riddles, sermons, prayers, lectures, and editorials. The cultural category of talk, for example, insults, compliments, and apologies. For example, the aunt might tell a character anecdote about a grandmother for entertainment, but an example as moral instruction. Its different discipline develop terms for kinds of speech acts, and speech communities sometimes have their own terms for types. Jadi setiap community mungkin memiliki pengertian yang berbeda-beda tentang types of speech acts ini. Here are an analysis of speaking model in conversation. First is Mr. Brown. He is tourist, and then Mr. Bonar, he is a taxi driver. Good morning, sir. Good morning. I would like to go to Madani Hotel. Oh, Hotel Madani? I know it. How long to go there? From here, Kuala Namu, 1 hour to Madani. And then there is interruption from Mr. Brown. What about a half hour? No, I'm sorry, I'm busy, sir. Mr. Bonar said that he cannot mengantarkan Mr. Brown to Madani Hotel for just in a half hour. And then Mr. Brown said, okay, then how much? 100,000 rupiah. Okay, let's go. This is the analysis of the conversation. First is setting and scene. The foreigners and Bataknas driver's conversation is at Kuala Namu International Airport. And at times, the foreigner and Bataknas driver will be festive and at other times serious. Participants at the conversation here are Mr. Brown and Mr. Bonar. The ends or the goal or the purpose of the conversation is to give information and show the direction. For X sequence, here are Mr. Bonar told that it took 1 hour to Madani Hotel, and Mr. Brown interrupted, asking to drive there for a half hour. For the key, Mr. Bonar might imitate Mr. Brown's voice and gestures, or he might address him in serious voice, emphasizing the reality of the distance. And for the instrumentalities, they use formal language. For the norms, a conversation between a foreigner and a driver might be interruption but politely, or might not be lying as norms. And for the genre, the kind of speech, act, or event used here, the dialogue or conversation. The driver might tell the distance and the cost to Madani Hotel for information or polite response or as moral attitude. In conclusion, from the above analysis, it can be concluded that the entire conversation between Mr. Brown with Mr. Bonar or the driver just to use the services of a driver and the information about place. The atmosphere was visible from almost all the talks made by friendly and courteous. Indeed, there is a sentence that is not perfect. It's sometimes difficult to be labeled, and it's also acceptable in oral conversation because the context of the conversation and paralinguistic elements is helpful to understand illocutionary respectively. This is the end of our presentation, and thanks for watching our video. I hope this video will be useful and helpful for you to understand the material. See you on the next video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.